we need to get good questions. And so one of the things that we could do as a class, if you're comfortable with that, is ask you some questions, and we can help fill out the form. And we can actually leave one of the forms filled up with you so that you can see some of the things that you need to do in the future.
We won't, in other words, we'll leave the original with you.
Okay.
You can do what you want. It's still kind of a nightmare.
And what would you prefer me to call you? Brett? Okay.
I can take this off. It's better.
No. That's perfectly comfortable, because one of the things, Brett, that is very helpful for us who are becoming claims agents is catching the active duty person before they get out, because there's a lot of things that you can do while you're on active duty that will help your claim later on when you're looking at applying for veterans benefits. And because we found that out before. One of those things, of course, is knowing where your medical records are and getting a hold of that. The other one is, if you can document you've done 3 tours in Iraq already, is to note where were you, who were you with, what were the dates. All those things can be very helpful, particularly if you know the names of some people that you're around, if in the future you ever need to use their statements, buddy statements type of thing we call that. Do you see yourself filing for veterans claims after you leave the service?
Yeah, I'll probably have to.
Yeah. Okay. How long do you have left in the service?
On paper, 3 years, 4 years left. But
Are you on medical hold right now?
yeah, like they really don't know what to do with me right now.
So are you also on the non-deployable, non-retainable list, or not yet?
I'm non-deployable right now because I'm in the middle of like what they would call therapy, but so I'm not deployable, but I don't know if I'm retainable.
Okay.
That's a medical decision.
That's medical, yeah.
So, but what we're doing, Brett, is that we're getting you ready for your separation exam. You won't forget this interview. Your separation exam is very, very important to the VA. We're going to look at everything on there, and all it is a bunch of little check marks. You know, did you have this? Did you have this? Did you have a runny nose? Did you have a headache? Blah blah blah. And then when we review your medical records, we're going to be looking at that final separation exam if you have that yet. And then we will fill it out from there. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
One of the first items in the Form 21-526 talks about the type of things that you're applying for. One is compensation, one is pension, one is compensation and pension. Lena, why don't you speak to those 3 areas for training purposes?
Okay, for training purposes, there are 2 VA monetary awards. One is a monetary award based on problems that you incurred on active duty that had lasting effects. The other is that you had to serve 180 days during wartime. You're now totally disabled and you're below the poverty line. There is a pension available for you. That 180 days, 1 day must have had been during wartime service. This normally applies to the older veterans, but it is available for a totally disabled vet who is below the poverty line.
I would probably be marking the word compensation.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And later, if we needed pension, then we can file that there. Have you ever filed a claim with the VA? No. And the next line, where you would need your full name, and so Brett is your first name?
Yeah, B-R-E-T-T, first name.
Middle?
Name or initial? My middle name's Andrew.
Put that down. Okay. And your last name?
McFan.
What you said, McCain.
Oh, fan with 2. And do you have a suffix after that, like junior, senior? Okay. Now, for the purpose of the tape, we're not going to ask you your Social Security number because we put this series out on Blip TV for training purposes, and so we don't need to reveal your Social Security, but for a claim. Yeah.
And in fact, I guess anything that you would have reservations about, let me know and I'll turn off the camera.
Any of the others jump in too?
I was going to
So
say, a
we
lot of
can-
this stuff, I mean, it's very basic about who you are, address, phone, contact information, things like that. Fairly straightforward.
like date of birth.
Yeah. I think where it starts getting specific is on that second page where we're starting to look at the service contract. So when you,
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Do you remember when you entered active service for the first time?
April 23rd, 2004.
April 23rd?
Yes.
You've already been over there 3 times?
Yep.
what year?
And where did you enter?
2004.
Sorry.
Where did you enter?
The state?
Yeah, stateside. Or
Dayton, Ohio.
in Dayton, Ohio. And we had asked you for your service number, but we don't need to do that now because that is a thing that we don't there. You have not left active service, so that, but we will in this case would have created a date that you left the active service date because that would need to be filled in, and the place. In this case, it could be Joint Base Lewis McChord, if that were the case. The branch of the service is Army, and you're E5 or E5. And none of the others would be here like second period or third period because this is your first enlistment? Or
I've never separated and came back in. That's what you-
Yeah,
First
have
and
you
first
re-up-
and only.
Have you re-upped
Yes,
it?
I re-enlisted once.
Okay, when did you re-enlist? Roughly? What year?
April 10th, 2008.
So you're on basically on your second enlistment.
But it's still a single period of active service.
There's no
Because there's no
separation.
breaking, no separation.
You're right.
See, they used to give you a separate DD 214 for each enlistment. Now they don't do that.
No.
No.
And we're having difficulty, some of the veterans are having difficulty breaking that up. They had honorable service a couple of times and they had a BCD or OPH. Yeah.
You did not serve in Vietnam, as you can see this form. Well, judged by the color of the hair, okay.
I've aged well.
Yeah, there you go.
What's your secret?
Were you ever stationed in the Gulf War after 1990?
Not in the Gulf War.
The
At least.
question is stationed in the Gulf. So
Well, stationed
that
In the
applies-
Gulf, actually.
Yeah, I was in the Gulf.
So the answer is yes after that. And if yes, then you go on to 16B, which is, do you want to have the medical and other information about you included in the Gulf War Veterans Health Registry? Lena, do you want to talk to that issue?
Well, the period of time that they're referring to there is the period of time that Perry was involved in, that first Gulf War. I don't think it applies in this aspect.
And I assume you've not been a prisoner of war.
I thought it did because of like it's gonna the isn't like depleted uranium and that kind of stuff gonna come up in the registry later on.
You could.
Well, that's an area that I'm gray about it. I thought it was specific for the first Gulf War, but it very well may.
I think some of the material I was looking at said it was established through 2007, but might be extended, and they may have done that, so it would be something to find out.
Sure.
Only because there's veterans that could have served both that
Right.
war
Not this one.
and this.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, anybody that had been in both of them, that would be an appropriate question to answer.
And this would assume that you have left your active duty, so you would have been assigned to an active reserve unit, because normally you have, what, 3 years or so after you active ready reserve?
I think you're technically considered an active ready reserve up until 8 years of federal service, and then after 8 years, when you get out, it's
So you will have had 8.
I will have had 8 years.
I don't know if that's considered active reserve. You've done your active service, then you're in the individual ready reserve.
Yeah, but I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that, like, basically if you've served longer than 8 years or 8 years or longer, once you ETS out of the Army, then
You have no
You're
obligation.
done.
then you're done.
Yeah.
You're in your obligation. Is what I thought.
I think you're correct.
So we'd say no in this case. And then we'd move on to number 3. And one of the others in the group here take over this, because we're also going to be asking some questions that we need to know too.
Holly? Molly? What did you ask?
So actually, most of the next questions
Most of this section 4 is not,
is active reserve, National Guard, none of which would apply.
Just where you put a big X mark across the
yeah,
page.
just sort of,
Which I guess brings it, so you don't want to leave anything blank. If it's not applicable, you want to at least say NA or.
Well,
put a line through it and say
I would-
NA.
I would put a whole X mark to it and
Right.
put NA at the top, not applicable. I wouldn't mess around all that stuff, I tell you.
Now we're on basically page 4, section 6, and this is where we need to start talking about injuries, type of thing. Were you injured while traveling to or from your military assignment?
To and from the Middle East. You mean, like, are you talking about, like, combat wounded that we're talking about?
No.
So you know what I think that is? I think that's continuation of that reserve and National Guard.
In other words, if you were going to your meeting or going to the
If you were that
drill-
weekend warrior and you were traveling and you were hurt, that's considered service connected.
Okay.
As long as there's no misconduct on your part.
That's
Right.
what I was.
Yeah, that's
kind of
not, that, I think that's,
Yeah.
I think that's all National Guard and Reserves there.
The next section that they're going to ask you is talking about your military benefits. So one of the others, why don't you ask one of the questions?
Yeah. Well, actually, I was noticing the fine print here. It talks about when you file the application, you're telling us you want VA compensation instead of military retired pay. So it's, if you get the compensation, you're not going to get military retired pay. So they can
Or
offset
they'll
it.
lose it.
There's concurrent now. There's concurrent receipt now. But you're asking for the VA compensation. But if he's rated at 50% or more, he's going to get, if he's temporary disability retired, he'll get both of them.
Are you receiving or will you receive retired or retired pay that is based on your military service?
He doesn't know, right?
I don't know.
He doesn't know whether they're going to discharge him.
Okay. So it's full page.
Well, we could say no, but we could also say unknown.
Unknown.
Yeah.
Just put down unknown.
So it might be useful to star some of the questions that he would need to pay attention to
Yeah.
afterwards, in this whole plan of questions.
I haven't heard anybody ask yet if he's received a Purple Heart.
I have not received it.
He has not received it. Do you have a combat with it?
Yes.
Didn't hear anybody ask those questions. Those are very, very important questions to ask.
So that's not going to come up. not be
No,
part
but
of
that's what you'd
later
be
on.
looking at. You'd be looking at when you're looking at his
Yeah.
discharge papers. You would see that.
Right. Since he's in uniform, I see what looks like a medical
Have
badge.
you
No, that's combat action, air assault.
Okay.
combat action and
Air assault.
You're a paratrooper?
I'm a dope on the road.
Dope on the
I flew a
road.
lot of helicopters.
Oh my gosh.
have you received any physical injuries while you were in the service?
Yes.
If we were to look in your medical records,
Yes,
would
there
they
were
show that?
injuries, Yes.
What kind?
I was knocked unconscious while on a convoy. I dislocated my shoulder on a convoy. I don't know if it's
Which
considered-
shoulder was that?
Left shoulder. I don't know if it's considered injured, but have constant ringing in my ears. It's documented.
And group, what do we call that?
Tinnitus.
And headaches all the time.
Chronic headaches?
Yeah.
Are you receiving any
Guards you well.
prescriptions from TRICARE for that now?
Nothing for physical pain. They just try to keep me doped up for sleep and stuff.
So you're receiving some of the psychotropic drugs as far
Yes.
as PTSD goes?
Yes.
3, 4, 5 different ones.
They change it so much. I lose track. They change my plans all the time.
So did you get adequate treatment for your shoulder?
No.
No, because
I got
shoulder
Motrin and a
injuries.
bottle of water.
You got what?
I got Motrin and a bottle of water.
Now, does that shoulder still bother you?
Not on the day to day.
It's reoccurring?
It's recurring.
It's reoccurring.
On exertion, like
Yeah,
lifting
if-
and stuff?
Well, like if I would like to push my arm any further
Range of
back than that,
motion.
it would
Okay,
pop out of
limited
place.
range of motion in
Limited
the
range of
shoulder.
motion.
See, that's stuff that I think really, you need to keep.
I go back to sick call about it all the time, and they tell me
Suck up.
to being a girl.
We're, yeah, but see, what we're telling you is
That stuff is important.
put it on that separation exam. You'll fill out a bunch of questionnaires before you get
See,
out.
one of the things when we went over and I was asking you, about your active duty status and getting this medical information, some of this stuff you really need to bring up to the Army physician while you are in the service so that they cover this and it forces them
It's documented.
to document it. And then it gets into your military health records. And then later on when you are filing VA health claims, it's this, well, there it is, the claim that was there. And it may lead to furthering the type of percentage of compensation that you'll get.
Do you understand what I mean when I say separation physical?
Like the final physical when you
The
leave the
final, no
Army.
matter how many years you have served, the final
Yeah.
physical exam when you're coming out, and the VA will look at that very heavy, very heavy.
Mark, Perry, and myself all had to do that as veterans.
And I seem to recall mine was, let's get it over with and get the hell out of here.
Many of the guys have that same attitude, and so they left a lot of it blank. We're giving you advance notice to do that.
Okay, so you were knocked unconscious,
Now go for it. Yeah.
and how did that get treated?
It was kind of a unique situation. We were outside of Mosul, up north in Iraq, and we were convoying down to
Traumatic brain
Mali, Bar
injury. I
province.
got it somewhere. I gave it to you.
We got hit with an IED, and I had a hold of I was a gun with a 50 cal, and I had a hold of my machine gun. And then when the blast hit, I rocked back, and the helmet came up and hit my forehead and knocked me unconscious. But we had to keep moving. So whenever I woke up, they just get back into the turret. So
All right, let me share something with you. On the traumatic brain injury, I gave you that list, that on TBI. Do you know what we're talking about then between mild, moderate, and severe?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know, but
Okay,
I know
all right.
that's one that we're going to be
If he
looking
was
at.
knocked unconscious more than 20 minutes, that is considered a mild. Moderate, you come
Sorry,
to
I have
it.
to take this. This is my wife. She's in the hospital right now.
Oh, bless your heart. But you ought to look at it. I brought those to you. They previously, until last year, he'd taken it from his wife. Previously, until last year, they considered this mild TBI as malaria or hysteria. Now, what he's telling us, he's having these chronic headaches, recurring headaches. Could very well be from the effect. Was there confusion after he came to?
Also, Judith picked up, because I just read her reaction, when he just says my wife's in the hospital.
When I go, oh,
See, so realize that
What's going on?
there's a lot of things going on with this young man.
well, that's
Three deployments, wife in the hospital, TBI, PTSD.
Why haven't they gotten
And he-
consistent care?
That's my question. If he
Consistent care.
And he had re-enlisted, so it sounded like he had been planning to spend a career in the military, or at least an extended time there.
I am so thankful that our location had changed
wow.
to
Yes.
Coffee Strong from where we started out in an unnamed location, because we are seeing now
We're seeing
real.
the current effects.
We're seeing some current effects, and we can only imagine.
Yeah, so on your 526, you should have the TBI with residual, the chronic headaches,
That would be on the set, portion about the disability.
not the
The
disability.
tinnitus, yeah.
And the tinnitus, constant. It doesn't have to be constant, by the way. It can be reoccurring one ear or the other. It doesn't have to be both of them.
If he has the ringing in the ears, he should also get a hearing
Oh, he can
test.
get, oh, that'll
You can get it.
open the door for anything he might need.
Oh, because he's probably got loss of hearing to go with
Well,
the ringing.
yeah, but not necessarily. It isn't necessary. So, by the time you're 30 years old, you're already losing some of your hearing. But now, post-traumatic stress disorder secondary to 3 combat tours in Iraq. How much further have we got?
Well, the next one is just basically talking about the benefits and lump sum and all that. And that really doesn't apply towards.
Yeah.
I would wait and see how he is when he comes back. If he comes back.
Yeah, we may not want to go any further.
'Cause, you know,
Judith, I'm going to let you follow up on this since you're a counselor by training. Is allow your
She's
sensitivity.
upset, and I'm upset because of what's happening this year.
So once again, you're seeing a situation where, I mean, essentially the Army is just using it up and then saying, okay, we're done.
Well, they're stretched so thin. They have been sending inexperienced psychologists and counselors over to Iraq and Afghanistan that don't know how to handle a wounded, emotionally wounded veteran. That's the sad part. And here, apparently they're so overwhelmed here that they can't deal with it. So that's
So it's more a matter of just nothing else, they're just overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed.
Even if they wanted to do a
Overwhelmed.
good job, they couldn't.
Why can't they contract it out privately though, so this man can have consistency with his counselor?
lean, mean, and green. That's what they're looking at, the bottom line, money. What does it
And
cost?
that's why we'll be paying for this war, I don't know, for at least another 50 years.
One that we should have never gotten into.
There is a section coming up on tell us your disabilities, page 2, this one here. But it also is going to talk about Agent Orange and other things.
That Agent Orange does not apply, not applicable.
Right.
So you just
No.
cross that out.
So here, I mean, he did not come here with the idea of filing a claim.
Mhm.
But just from talking with him, we're talking, you know, we've got PTSD, TBI, and loss of hearing, plus the shoulder.
Plus the shoulder.
So you've got at least 4 things you could, each of those you would list separately.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then say, yeah, when it began, treatment, if there was any. It sounds like in this particular case, treatment may not be documented.
Doesn't have to be under 1154. So we're what? We've started at the top. We're going to the shoulder.
Yeah, we haven't gone beyond that.
I would go back up to the head because if he got knocked out, we don't know how long he was unconscious. What was his state of mind when
He came to.
when he came to? You know, here's this poor guy in a turret.
Where's that TBI thing I gave you? Those brochures I gave you.
I'm gonna be-
Is she okay?
Yeah, she's.
She gonna have a baby?
I wish. She,
Are you- Like me with a dick on the
we repel on outliers.
wheels. You what?
There's we put a harness over ourselves, and then there's like a, you know what a D-ring is? It's like a
Yeah.
clip ring.
Well, I know what repelling is.
Yeah, and then they clip it to us and put a bunch of army crap on us, and we repel out of helicopters. It's like being a paratrooper, except without the parachute.
You have a rope instead
Instead, you
of
have a rope instead of a parachute.
The only time I've ever repelled was down a cliff or something, so I had my feet against something.
What they do is they, standard is 90 feet off the ground, and there's usually 4 of us in a bird, and then they have this big rope coiled up, and then you toss the rope out, and you have 90 seconds to get 4 soldiers out of the helicopter on the ground and secure the perimeter, and the bird leaves. That's the estimated amount of time it would take for the enemy to react and essentially engage the target. So.
Brett, the class here is interested in learning more about the TBI, if it was just only one that you had, and also the amount of time that you were unconscious that you know of, or they told you?
I know it wasn't long. It was just probably less than like a few minutes.
20 minutes, a half hour?
No, not that long. It was because as soon as like I came to, I immediately like came to, and then they drank milk.
You came to on your own accord?
Sort of. It was like my driver like punching me.
Yeah.
We just got hit by a blast. We needed firepower, so you know.
He didn't need you to be unconscious.
He needed people to die, not me to be unconscious. So he was like, wake up.
Now here's what the book says. Concussions range in significance from minor to major, but they all share one common factor. They temporarily interfere with the way your brain works. According to the Mayo Clinic staff, they can affect memory, judgment, reflexes, speech, balance, and coordination. Did you notice any change in any, when you were coming to and trying to get back to work, were you having any difficulty coordinating everything? Do you recall that?
Well, since then, I've kind of a piss poor memory. My equilibrium hasn't been messed up, but you know, that's when the ringing in my ears started.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay, usually caused by a blow to the head, concussions don't always involve a loss of consciousness. In fact, most people who have concussions never black out. Some people have had concussions and not even realized it.
Mm-hmm.
So concussions are common, particularly if you play a contact sport such as football, this type of thing. But the kind that you're experiencing can have
In the 3 deployments or 4 deployments, 3, did you experience any other type of IEDs or explosions or other
so
stuff?
many IEDs. I don't. It was a lot. I mean, whether I was directly involved or like, you know, near me or something like. We were driving daily down the most dangerous route, literally in the Middle East. There were IEDs.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't if we got hit, it was when we got hit and how bad it was going to be. So if that kind of puts it in perspective.
So essentially, I mean, that was just something you had to live with the whole time you were there. And
Well, that was that particular instance was the one that kind of really shook me and like kind of said, "You're in combat,"
Mhm.
and so that one really kind of stuck with me. And it was kind of after that you know I kind of got jaded over to the whole thing.
So this was not so much as, gee, a firefight, but there's actual IEDs exploding all the time and injuring people or killing my buddies.
Well, it was either most of the time it was just we were in a weird time. It was 2006 was kind of like when we started to really develop devices to combat IEDs as far as like remote detonation, which is what they were using in the Anbar province, and it was during that time that they started to use like one particular one was they would take a water hose and then run it down. We only convoyed at night. We weren't allowed to convoy every day. It was too dangerous. So they would run a water hose down the middle of the road, like in the cracks in the road, because you can't. And then just spray paint it black, because we couldn't see it. Everything, our infrared doesn't pick it up because everything's scorching hot during the day, so everything kind of looks the same. And they would run their det wire through the middle of the water hose, and then we would run over it. It would explode, obviously. So it was, 2006 was, and that was before we took the city over Mali, so it was like still kind of the Wild West thing.
He said troops returning home from combat may experience a wide range of psychological responses. Many veterans experience some levels of sleeplessness, anxiety, irritability, intrusive memories, or feelings of isolation. The severity of these symptoms vary widely between individuals, and a single victim's symptoms usually fluctuates over time. Many veterans are coping with both psychological injuries and TBI, and the effects of these two kinds of injuries can compound each other. So what he's saying is, what he not only has, in my opinion, the delayed stress, but the TBI, I mean, the PTSD can compound together.
So did you get any treatment at all for that head injury? No. Did it get reported?
I don't know. I don't know. It was really weird. Just in those days, you know, when we went on convoys and stuff, especially that particular one, we were convoying 3 days from one of the northernmost occupied cities to like one of the busiest cities, which is Ramadi. So like when we were moving, it was just we need to get from like point A to point B. Like whatever happens in between, we'll like sort it out when we get there. But to answer your question, I guess
Okay, maybe.
I don't know.
But you never called into sick unit or the...
We didn't even have one when we got there. It was just we got there and then like there was like there was, but we were replacing another unit, so we really didn't have anything set up. They were taking care of people with like real problems. They're like missing the legs and stuff. I can't come in with like I wasn't going to go in there with a headache, and like the dude next to me doesn't have an arm, So I was just like, well, I'll just kind of take over.
Here's what it says. It says, as with psychological injuries, the effects of TBI may vary. Symptoms can include the emotional problems, vision, hearing or speech problems, dizziness, sleep disorders, or memory loss. For troops exposed to multiple blasts, TBIs can accumulate, leading to serious neurological problems that are not immediately apparent after the injury. So, if you were exposed to a bunch of those TBIs, there's just absolutely no telling.
If we were to talk to your wife, what would she share with us that she's observed about you during and after deployments?
I don't know. I really don't talk to her much about
Which is typical, by the way. That's very typical.
You all were married before you were deployed?
We got married before my last deployment, but not during the 2006 deployment.
So she doesn't know what you were like prior to being deployed at all?
She didn't before.
So she can't really testify to that kind of a change?
Not really, no.
Well, she can say how he's like now, and that's really important. What we want to get across to you is how much we care about you. We may not be able to solve your problems here, but there's not a person sitting around this table whose heart does not go out to you. And we want you to get the help that you need and the consistent counseling that you truly need.
A lot of it's consistency, and it just seems like the doctors I talk to are like, it's really hard to talk without cussing all the time, without like being severely underqualified.
Yeah. It's not that we haven't or used it ourselves.
Underqualified.
I'm trying to be polite.
Well,
they're
You're saying military doctors?
well, they're not Army docs. They're
Contractors.
They're hired contractors. But like, it seems like that when you go to talk to these guys, there's an agenda, and then the idea is to make you able to go back to war, not to make you better, but to essentially make you function. And like, they don't care about anything else. They don't care about like, if you're going to be good in the long run. They don't care like what's going on day to day. They want to know that you can pull a trigger, basically. And like, when I go talk to these guys, like, they hear me, but they don't listen to me. It's like, if I don't, like, they have like a checklist, it seems like, that if I don't fit into these parameters, then like, they're lost. Like, they don't know what to do. And like, that seems to be the biggest issue, is the fact that like, when I talk to them, they act like I'm like speaking Arabic to them or something. Like, I'll tell them something that is like they've never heard that before. And I know people hadn't said some of these things before. I mean, I'm not that unique.
So they're not necessarily specialists in dealing with the effects of combat?
It seems like it's just, you go in there and they have like 2 treatments, and they're like, well, as soon as I go in there every time, they say, well, we tried prolonged exposure. You know, like that's par for the course. But you know, I've tried prolonged exposure.
What's prolonged exposure?
Reliving your traumatic event over and over and over to like
really?
essentially like help your mind kind of deal with it. It just made me really angry and drank a lot. But I didn't. Yeah, I didn't. It didn't work. And then they're like, well, have you tried EMDR? You know, it's the rapid eye movement thing, and that.
That did not work at all.
No, they said that we tried speech or the talk therapy. I tried that. I tried acupuncture. I tried, you know, like pixel. I mean,
Tapping and things like that.
Yeah, I tried all kinds of stuff. And like, I go back and I tell these guys that, and they're like, you know, you don't know what to do.
We're out of suggestions.
You know, we're out of suggestions. Your life.
How
sorry.
has the pharmacological treatment worked with you? That is, the prescriptions you received.
Well, I'm boycotting them at the moment because they've changed my prescription so much, and like I haven't been on anything consistently because nothing seems to work. And I'd rather be miserable and like not feel like
In control.
I'd rather be miserable and in control than like when I'm on meds, it's like I'm so melancholy and like disengaged from everything that I just don't care. And I know that's what the Army wants me to feel like, so that way I'm able to function. And I understand that medicine has its place, like in conjunction with like good therapy, but you know the therapy is not working, and then most of the times, you know, the psychological meds and the sleeping pills never work. So I'm like, well, I'm just not gonna take them.
Do they just ever let you sit down and talk? You know, just talk?
Well, yeah, I've talked before, but like my thing is, it's like, you know, I'm not under any illusions, and I've read about psychology, and to be quite honest, I don't have a lot of faith in it because, like, if you read the stipulations, like, according to modern psychology, if you have sex with somebody that's not your same race, that's a mental condition. If you have road rage, that's a mental condition. If you smoke, that's a mental condition. In 2006, I was killing people. My therapist was like probably doing keg stands, and that makes him qualified to help me? So yeah, I talked to them, and they're just like,
I don't really hear you or understand.
yeah, they're a talking head, they're a suit.
Well, let me share something with you, Brad. Those of us who have never experienced combat, I've never seen a dead body. I've never had to pick up a body. I've never had to pick up a wounded thing. That doesn't mean I don't care. Now, she's a therapist, a counselor, but I have dealt with thousands of you young men. How to get that across to someone that I don't necessarily have had to go in the battle to be able to be of help to you.
Right, and I understand that. You know, I mean, I'm not like throwing
No.
psychology under the bus.
I'm not a psychologist.
So I mean, like, don't take offense.
No.
I'm not doing that. It's just like
Your
the quality
perception is
of
what's
like,
important. Your perception is what's important.
like these guys on post just seem like they. It's like, you know, where did you go to school? How did you get a degree? You know, I mean, like, I know nothing about psychology, and I could do a better job than these guys. You know.
What do you think that they should do for you?
Well, you know, for one, I would like to actually talk to a psychologist, not like somebody who received like a 2-week training course on how to deal with like pissed off veterans. That would be nice. I would like to. I think it would be nice if they could, you know, like, they could be consistent. If they would offer like real options instead of just like shut up, take your pills, go to therapy, you'll be fine. You know,
Is that what they're saying to you?
not in those words, but
But basically.
yeah, essentially, it's like, you know, are you taking your meds? And then it's either yes or no. And if you say, well, I do, but you know, there's no room for that. It's either yes or it's no, or you're not taking your pills. And then if you're taking them, then like, you know, according to their logic, then well, why aren't you functioning right? You know, maybe, you know, this logically doesn't make any sense. You know, but I don't know. This like the whole process is like incredibly frustrating, which is in large part why I've like just completely given up on like the whole army, like on the army really. To tell you the
So,
truth.
Brett, your military career goals, do I perceive that they are limited?
Yes. The sooner I am
Did you
on-
originally plan a career?
Big pardon?
Did you originally plan to make a career in the military?
No. I won't get politics like that. I'm not going to make a career. I
Have
can't.
you thought about it?
Had I thought about it? Once upon a time, and a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Well, when you re-enlisted, what,
Biggest mistake of my life.
Bonus, wasn't it?
It was bonus. Yeah, I was really, really broke in a really bad situation. they were gonna like repossess my car. I was like 2 months behind in rent, so I was like, I need money. So I was like, well, I guess I'll have to read it.
It's really clear, Brett, that you're a very bright guy. And,
Very brave.
well, yeah, both bright and brave. And so I'm hoping that out of all of this stuff, you'll be able to get something that can give you education or an opportunity to really use that.
Well, that's the plan. Out of the army, you go back to school.
Yeah.
I want to be Mr. Sergeant.
That's right.
When we talk so far, we've got down to your shoulder, and then we've gone right back up to the head again.
Yeah, I don't
And I know you have several questions.
Well, you see, you didn't get, didn't get treatment, didn't get acknowledged, and I think it's really important to mark that when you're compiling your medical history. And so when they talk about buddy statements and things like that, making sure that you keep track of who it was it that was punching you and saying, get back.
He's
He's gone.
yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody around that could testify or that?
I was the only one.
Let me share something with you. As she's indicated, and this article indicated, the TBI can accumulate. What you need to do is go to your doctor and say, Doc, I'm having these headaches. Now, they know you're having headaches, right? Do they know how many IEDs you're involved in?
No,
Have
nobody's
any
really
idea?
asked.
Huh?
I said, no, nobody's really asked.
No one's asked?
Okay. You said, Doc, I understand that this stuff can be accumulated. And I was involved in at least, what, a dozen? More than that of the IEDs that were close by, that I felt the impact of them. Did you feel the impact of the IEDs?
More often.
More often than not.
How many would you have said?
In 2006. Roughly.
Almost daily then, huh?
A lot. I don't know. It was a lot. I don't. It wasn't documented. I mean, we never really kept track. I mean, was Matt around?
He was in the restroom.
Yeah, so
It was a lot of
It was a bunch.
Okay.
I didn't.
So according to the information, that could be a cumulative factor. You can have serious problems. You need MRIs, and see what kind of damage the thing was done. That's what it says in there. And CAT scans. That's what it says in there.
Does it always have to be done through the military? Is it possible to?
Unless he pays for it privately, the military won't pay for
I
it.
know.
The only time they'll pay for it is if you have, like, I guess, what they call a referral, which is to say that, like, if the
They
military
don't
doesn't
have
have
the
the capabilities
capability.
to do it,
It's the same thing with the VA.
yeah, then they'll say just.
But they should do that for you. When you tell them that you have been in and we'll give you a copy of this if you want. And you take that to your doctor. So, doctor, I understand that the effects of the TBIs can be cumulative. And I'm having these chronic headaches, and I don't know how much damage has been done to me. I can't give you the number of TBIs I was injured with. Would that be a problem for you?
The only reason it would be a problem is, I've been through the Army. I've been in the Army for more than a minute. I know how the Army works. And,
Sure.
I've been through the Army medical system, in and out since I've been in. I'm not a sickly person. I'm usually
No, I
pretty
understand
good
that.
health.
We
But
understand that.
like just recently, for example, I was visiting my wife in California, and I got food poisoning while I was in California. It was pretty terrible. But long story short, I went to Cedars-Sinai Hospital while I was there, because that's
Right.
where we're closest to, which, as you know, is one of, if not the best hospital
Absolutely.
in the country.
Mhm.
Where I'm diagnosed by doctors like, yeah, you got food poisoning, no big deal. Here's some pills, you'll feel better in a couple of days. Check. So I come back to Fort Lewis. A couple days later, symptoms are reoccurring. So I'm like, I'll go to sick call. So I go to sick call, and some captain is like, oh, I have food poisoning? That's crazy. Who told you that? I'm like, a doctor at Cedars-Sinai Hospital? They don't exactly hand out staff positions there these days. He's like, no, it's not food poisoning. They gave me some random, I don't even know what it was. It was for nausea, and I wasn't nauseous. And he gave me something for headaches or something, but it wasn't like a headache pill. It was like something to prevent like migraines that I've taken before and didn't work. But anyway, it was like that.
Okay, do you have a copy of those Cedar Sinai records?
Yeah, of course, I keep everything.
Okay.
But like that's just an example of like how like I don't like to go to the Army system because like if you go to the Army system, it seems like more often than not either like yeah, gosh, I know so many people that have been like misdiagnosed and like they screwed up a surgery or like just all this like horrible stuff, you know, that like to like any doctor on the outside like, wow, that's really routine. But like apparently for the Army it's like solving cold fusion, you know.
So it doesn't work.
No,
But
I don't
yeah.
like the I don't like the health system in the Army. It's just
I hear
it's
you.
poor, I think.
They minimize everything that's wrong with it.
Well, it's always comes down to the lowest common denominator, you know, of course.
Well, but you can ask for it. Now, they can deny it. But you can ask for those MRIs. I'd like to have an MRI to see if there's been any neurological damage to me in my brain. You can ask them. They can
What
turn you
happens
down.
when you ask?
So, Lena,
What?
I was going to say, if he were to ask for something like that and they turn it down, is that something that would then
I would
play into
document
a
it.
claim later on?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because he's going to have cumulative effects anyway.
Rhett, do you have any other injuries or soreness like on knees, ankles, foot, everything? Because you've been jumping out of helicopters and
I'm just
things
thinking about that.
with full pack and body armor and whatnot.
Well, my knees are bad, but that's it can be the Army's fault. I don't care, but I mean, I played football before I came in. They're probably bad before that. Like the Army definitely helped. Like,
You made it
the
through
ship.
boot camp. See, this is what we're talking about. He made it through boot camp. Anything that happens to you after you make it through boot camp, no matter if you had a pre-existing condition, it's been aggravated. But is that on record, the fact that you were injured in high school football? Okay, if it's not on record, then you
didn't
you
happen.
don't volunteer information. That's number
Oh
one.
yeah, I know that.
So you jumping out of the helicopters were benefit, and you need X-rays on those knees, by the way. Do you have range of motion problems with your knees?
No, just the
Bending?
only problems I have with my knees, I have like calcium deposits on like the bottoms of my knees. That like,
How do you know?
oh, I went in for like I had hurt my knee playing soccer one time. It was no big deal.
Did
But,
you?
yeah,
Mhm.
and I went in to have a look down. And like, oh, how long has that been there? I'm like, since I was like a kid. And like if like I just tap my knee, it really hurts. So he said that it's like a calcium deposit or something that will go away.
Did
So-
he X-ray?
No.
Okay. Bending, stooping, lifting, does that bother your knees?
If I squat for a while.
Squatting.
Yes.
Okay. So I would file for both knees and force the VA will, it'll force the VA to X-ray them, but I would make sure you put that on your separation. I'm sorry, Dennis. Go ahead.
No, I'm just marking these notes, spread
What
so
about your
that.
back? Any problems with your back? Any problems with your hips?
Never had any serious.
Any injuries? I mean, any surgeries? Any stomach problems? Ulcers or high blood pressure or diabetes or anything like that? Does diabetes run in your family?
It runs in my family, but I've never really had serious stomach problems or back problems.
Have you had any breathing problems?
Yeah,
Tell me about those.
I smoke too much.
You been caught up with dust storms?
Yeah, we had one of the worst dust storms on record when I was there, actually. February of 06.
See, nobody knows yet the lasting
Not in the
effects
mechanic, my
of the
trade,
exposure
so-
Do you?
to the dust.
All the fluids and fumes and everything else from being a mechanic.
Were you anywhere near those fires that were going on, or you feeling any of that smoke from out of Kuwait, or when was that?
He wasn't over.
No, that was
2003.
Although actually there was an article about, I guess, contractors are burning waste rather than disposing of it properly.
We did that, yeah.
Originally it was temporary. It seems to have gone on.
It was like
and the
we were
smoke-
burning human waste.
Say again?
We were burning human waste,
Yeah.
not like trash.
This is also like mechanical waste, computer waste. I mean, they're supposed to be using an incinerator,
Oh yeah, they burned that stuff
but
all
they
over
don't.
the place.
They have
Well,
not
did you
done that.
inhale it? Did you have to inhale that stuff?
I probably did. I mean, I think everybody did. I mean,
Okay,
it was
well,
like
then
this
don't
huge
say probably.
place.
See, that's one of the things you want to remember, and you tell your class, you tell your veteran, never use the words occasionally. Once in a while, maybe, sometimes, or perhaps when you're talking to the VA. You say yes or no, and you be honest with your answers, but don't use those words. Now, were you exposed to any of that?
Yes.
Okay, that's the way you should answer. And you do have lung problems. You have frequent colds.
Yeah. That's
Do you feel like your smoking has increased after your service or during?
Oh yes. I smoked before I joined the Army, but it was like, half a pack a day, something like that. I smoked like 2 packs a day. I smoked my face off.
Because that can be related to secondary. What would you call it? Secondary something. Tobacco.
Well,
connected to PTSD.
for a period of time, the VA would allow the secondary smoke problem, but they kill that because we were coming in, we were just flooding them with this problem. So they kill that real quick.
Unless you.
Perry,
Other than the food poisoning you said you had, have you ever had any other stomach problems or digestive problems?
Yeah, just normal stuff.
What's normal?
I guess like upper respiratory, like when the seasons change, like just normal getting sick kind of stuff.
If you get diarrhea or anything like that?
Yeah.
Because from PTSD, there's stress, which stress can cause that.
Oh, I know for sure I had it because of that. Like last time I was deployed, I actually had to come back. I didn't finish my last deployment. I came back early. I don't know if it was legal or not, but I did. I went home on R&R leave, and I just kind of came up to Fort Lewis and signed myself in because the Combat Stress Center in Basra didn't exist, and they didn't have anything down there. And long story short, when I came back here at the Soldier Readiness Center, the place that says stamps you says you can go to war, said like I had a full word colonel asking me how I got deployed. He's like, there's no way you should have gotten deployed. So I had to come back early. I'm a coward.
So see, even the stress can cause other problems.
Yeah, I mean, while I was down there, I couldn't eat anything like at all ever. And if I did, it immediately came out. And I lost 60 pounds in like 2 months.
Things like that you need to have documented.
When you do your separation exam, you make sure that that's noted. And after you get through with all the checkoff marks, if they're still the same, there's a blank spot down there where you can add additional items. And you make certain that that's listed. What else?
I think the point about the separation exam is really important because I know when I got out, we didn't care.
No, all these guys.
So whatever happened is long gone.
most of the time when we got out, we went out, and if they take the exam from 15 feet away, that's fine with us. Sign it, we're out. But that doesn't help the veteran today, which has multiple problems, both physical and mental.
Any problems with your throat? Hearing loss. But besides the ringing in the ears, Harry mentioned the hearing loss.
Yes.
So you do have some.
Yes.
Well, in Vietnam, they just did a vocal hearing test. Now they put you in
Headphones.
the headphones. But they can't put their head in your ear and hear things. You say it's ringing the phone. The other portion, let's see. Elbows. Any problems with your elbows? Any problems with your other shoulder? Okay. Now let me share something with you what's going to happen as you get older. The knee problems that you have are going to graduate. You'll start favoring the bad leg.
I already do.
You already do. CT is already favoring the bad leg. That means it's going to turn the good leg bad. Okay? Then when you get that, if you get service connected for this knee and you're not service connected for the other knee, as time goes on, you want to have that other knee x-ray because it could be the service connected knee can be aggravating that knee. You're going to have trouble with your hips. You're going to have trouble with your back.
Brett, would you do something for me? Would you hold your hands out like this for a while?
Yeah, they shake.
Okay, you see why I asked that question? What do you think I'm picking up on?
Obviously some either nerve damage, or
tremor of some site.
psychological.
Remember that old guy I told you all about, that World War II vet that had been captured they wasn't captured, he was on Normandy, he was at the Omaha Beach, he was pinned down for 3 days, and his helmet got hit with a bullet. He was knocked unconscious. He didn't know how long because they were under constant fire. And so he came to and kept fighting, right? But he came out of that with a tremor. And they told him after the war that would go away in time. It never went away. So I had his son file him a claim for TBI. And it's going to be one of the first under this new law. So in all likelihood, that's a residual of the TBI.
Most likely, and that was one of the reasons I was picking up, because I was just observing. Sometimes it's a sort of a learned behavior or nervousness type of thing, but I mean, I have petit tremor myself, and I've had that for years. But when I see that in young veterans, I pick up on potential nerve damage.
What did you call it?
Petit, you know, minor, P-E-T-I-T.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like the teeth mall seizures.
Sure.
But give me a plate, and I'll spill the peas on everyone else. You know. So.
What was your first name again?
Judith.
Judith. Yeah, we're going to rely on you now.
Well, I'm just wondering how you feel. A little bit. Like you've been over the coals or something?
Yeah, I've sort of been into it. So, I don't know. You just kind of get used to it after a while.
Do you have questions for us? I mean, how could we help?